Cat, it says here, is a Red Seal carpenter. In all my time in the north, I never saw a Red Seal.
No, they're there.
I never knew of one that needed some carpentry. Anyway, so I couldn't miss it.
So for those who are not familiar with what a makerspace is, it's hard to sort of describe what one makerspace looks like because they all kind of look differently, but more or less the concept is the sharing of resources and pooling of resources to create a co-working space. The origins of makerspaces come from hack labs, which are coding labs, and then they kind of developed into these spaces that incorporate all sort of forms of making and creating. And there can be paid makerspaces, or there can be nonprofits, and we decided to go we decided that we were really invested in the idea of social infrastructure, so we decided to go for the nonprofit route. And that is sort of where the intention came from, is to create a facility, an institution for the community. Hello. So our makerspace, we decided that we would follow the sort of standard typical path of we have a dirty shop and a clean shop. So we divided the two, but we wanted to incorporate both because we think that that's a kind of really important thing to create a sort of well-rounded space and not just cater to one direction or the other, because the ability to grow your skills and grow as a person is much larger and broader. You can amplify both sides of things. And we applied for funding through the GNWT, through ITI, and also through Cannor's Idea North Fund, so the federal government. Shop. We now also have Art Space, which we won the funding for that, $100,000 for that in 2020. Later dates, we still have yet to spend the funding for our Arctic Inspiration Prize, which is a really big deal because that is that money to a nonprofit organization is very special because it's not, we don't have to spend it any one way, which if you're familiar with nonprofits, you have to spend your money in very specific ways. We have been renovating a space that will suit our needs. This was its own task, trying to find a new location, trying to find a location. I think we had about 4 different locations in mind that were either that we were actively engaging or that we were almost about to sign leases with, but things in Yellowknifer are very difficult, and so we finally did land on renovating the old After 8 building, which we chose because its location. It's central in Yellowknife. It is located immediately near a transit, and it's on the ground floor, which were huge sort of components in the why we were doing what we were doing, is to create an accessible space. We really realized that we needed to put a sort of focus on art so that we wouldn't lose it, because oftentimes makerspaces get kind of overwhelmed by the economic development potential of industry things, and but if you don't have a balance of arts and creativity as a focus, then you kind of lose a lot of the innovation that comes from those things. And so we decided to apply for Arctic Inspiration Prize funding to create a dedicated space within our space that would be focused on art. We have a lot of really great partnerships that are currently happening. We're doing a design build lab with some youth from home base, and Addition is partnering with us to do that, and it's an Indigenous architecture program. We have architects that are coming up from Saskatchewan, and we're right at the cusp of opening the space. So we have, but that's where we're at. We are ready to open the doors, invite people in, and I feel like there's probably a lot that is left out. So I'm gonna be willing to take questions.
Yeah. So thanks, Kat. When you do open the door, how do people get involved? We
will probably pretty shortly actually be rolling out some volunteer lists of things that can be done, and building task lists around that. So that would be one way is volunteering either to assist in the shop during open hours, or to, if you are somebody who has skills that are sort of, I guess, specific, or like you're capable of sharing them in a way that is beyond just like standing with one person. Like if you have any teaching capacity and you have a skill that can be taught, then we'll also be looking for people to run workshops. Like for instance, I'll be running like a women's tool workshop kind of thing. And then in terms of getting involved as sort of like an individual working on your own projects, we will start with just open shop for a while. So first little bit will be open membership. Anyone can sort of show up as long as they have orientation, which we'll be offering regularly. And then once we're ready to do a membership model, people will be able to buy a basic membership, which will give them access to sort of 3 days a week kind of thing, and only when the shop staff are present. And then they can sort of move up to an intermediate level access, which will give you maybe 5 days a week or 6 days a week. The sort of next step would be for us to offer not a professional, but an all-access membership. Children under the age of 15 will have to be accompanied by an adult, because we're going to go based off of job site rules, which is 15 and under are not allowed on a job site. So we'll do supervision unless there's a specific sort of workshop that is directed to hosting youth. So.
Okay. I'll apologize for the birds and the dogs and the passersby. You've done very well. As a club, you mentioned partnerships and that. What would you think a club such as ours could do in partnership with your place?
Well, there are, so for instance, when I was talking about the digital lab having expensive equipment, we have 2 laser cutters that are valued at about $40,000 a piece. That there can be certain specialty pieces of equipment that are very difficult to buy because they're either inaccessible or expensive or both. And one of the sort of reasons, or good reasons, to have a makerspace and to access a makerspace is to be able to use tools that you otherwise would not be able to access yourself. So I think that tool drives would be something that could work with Rotary to help support. That would be, I think, a really big one, is when the community says, we really, really want this tool, but it's maybe outside of our ability to invest in, or something like that we can do some assistance. And generally speaking, supporting people within the community that want to access the space but that might not be able to would be another thing that you could consider looking at, as like sponsoring as sort of almost like a scholarship kind of situation.
Because you have unqualified people coming in, dealing with, even supervised, dealing with equipment they're not always trained to deal with.
Oh, but it will be a requirement of use of the space to have undergone orientation. So everyone will be oriented or will be provided orientation on the tools prior to use. And we've also got some pretty real sort of safety procedures in place.
So who's thanking the speaker then?
John Hazenberg.
Well, thank you very much, Cat, for your presentation. I first met Cat, actually the only time, at the Restore store. And I knew she was on a quest for something. And I'm so pleased to see where you brought this stuff. Wonderful. Again, thank you. And here's a mug.